Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special council public planning meeting. Please be advised the meeting is being live streamed and will be audio and video recorded and shall form part of the record for which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about the collection, please contact the clerk's office. And just a reminder to all speakers tonight to please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. Last year, the town of Innisfil adopted our land acknowledgement statement that acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. So I will ask that we call this meeting to order, and I would ask a mover and a seconder please to approve the agenda. Councillor Nicol and Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That is carried. And then I would ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest for tonight's meeting. Seeing none. We'll start with our business items, item number 4. So tonight we will be provided with an update on the town's Our Growth to 2051 as part of the County of Simcoe's Municipal Comprehensive Review, including refinements to the province's prime agricultural area. Tonight's meeting is for information and consultation purposes with no decisions being made this evening. We'll start by hearing from a representative from SGL Planning and Design, and after they have spoken, council may have a few questions or provide comment, and then we will have the public consultation where members of the public who have pre-registered will be identified on the speakers list. And when it's your turn, I will ask you to turn on your video and audio, and you will have 5 minutes to ask your questions or express your concerns. Then staff or the consultant will respond where possible. After everyone has had a turn, should anyone need to speak for a second time to identify an issue that has not already been raised or to receive clarification, they will be provided with an additional 5 minutes. Should any member of the public watching the live stream wish to make comment during the meeting, they can email or call Clerk Services, where the Deputy Clerk will be monitoring for input and will provide your comments to council and town staff during the meeting. Any comments received will become part of the public record. If you do not submit your comments during this meeting, you can still send comments and they will be provided to council and town staff. You will also be added to the circulation list as an interested party where you will be kept updated on any future information regarding this item. The email and phone number will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda that can be found on the website. We'll now hear from the town clerk on how the notice of this meeting was provided to the public.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So as this is not a formal meeting under the Planning Act, we did still provide notice of the meeting in the Innisfil Journal on March 17th, 2022. And it was also posted on the town's website and the town's Get Involved Innisfil.ca website for review and commenting. As well, we did send notice out via email to interested parties.
Thank you, Mr. Park, and I'll now ask if any correspondence has been received by Clerk Services concerning the county's municipal comprehensive review process.
Yes, Your Worship, we did receive 3 pieces of correspondence. The first from Aidan O'Brien, dated March 29th, requesting clarification if there will be a net gain or decrease in natural heritage system lands being proposed. The second item from Richard Simpson, dated March 30th, 2022, requesting a meeting with town staff prior to adoption of the MCR in order to discuss the county's natural heritage system mapping related to a portion of that property. And the third from Miles Weeks, Senior Planner from Foten Consultants, Inc., dated March 30th, regarding proposed future uses for property located at 1590 and 1702 Innisfil Beach Road. And just one further reminder, Your Worship, that the public may provide comment or register their interest during the meeting or up until council makes a decision by contacting the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Park. And we'll now hear from Paul Lowe's, SGL Planning and Design Incorporated, who will provide a summary of the planning context of the Municipal Comprehensive Review.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Ms. Nordstrom was going to say a few words before I started, if she's available.
Yes,
Thank you,
I'm
Ms.
here.
Nordstrom. My apologies.
That's okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and to council and to the public that are on this call and to those watching through the live stream. I just wanted to, by way of introduction, Paul Lowe's is the principal at SGL Planning and Design, and he is assisting the town in the review and our contributions of our comments to the county for the county's MCR process. And Paul brings over 35 years of experience in planning, including, and most near and dear to our hearts, he was the project lead of the town's Our Place official plan. So Paul brings a unique understanding of our approach to growth and our approach to sustaining our environmental resources in our countryside areas. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to introduce Paul, and I'll turn it over to Paul to walk through the presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. And a pleasure to be with you tonight, Madam Mayor and members of council. And I'm going to briefly go through some of what I'm going to say today is similar to what you've heard. It's really just an update of where we're at, kind of a reminder of where we started from. So if we can have the next slide. First couple of slides, I'm just going to remind everybody on the process that the county is going through. So the county's MCR, as we call it in a short form, is a municipal comprehensive review, and the province is requiring all single and upper tier municipalities, including the county, to undertake this municipal comprehensive review, and it's to implement the 2020 growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And the county must plan for out to 2051 for the population employment forecasts that are set out in Schedule 3 of the growth plan. And those are 555,000 population and 198,000 jobs. And you see the difference in the graph on the right of where the 2021 population and employment are and how much has to be increased by 2051. The county, the province has indicated the county must finalize their amendments and their municipal comprehensive review process by July of 2022, which is coming up. The county has indicated they'll likely be August before they finish that process. And then the town, all local municipalities, including the town, will have to update their official plan 1 year later. So if it's August 2022, we'll have to update the official plan by August of 2023. Next slide, please. So just to give everybody an update of where the county is in the process, they identified a 3-phase process for completing the municipal comprehensive review and updating their official plan. As we see there, we're just starting phase 3. The county's been working away on their technical recommendations, but we haven't received them yet. We're expecting them very soon, and these include the final land needs assessment. If you recall, that was provided in the fall. The agricultural refinements to the provincial agricultural system, again, that draft was provided in the fall. Final document is to be coming out shortly. And the refinements to the provincial natural heritage system. Then we expect the draft official plan to be provided, and we expect that sometime this spring. And I'll go through that in my last slide of what the kind of next steps are. So next slide, please. As part, if you recall back in my October presentation to council, as part of that municipal comprehensive review, the county is going to finish the land needs assessment, which is going to identify the quantum of new employment and community use lands, residential, commercial lands that will be needed beyond what's already contained in the settlement areas. And then it'll be up to all the local municipalities, including Innisfil, to identify where that quantum of land should go, what settlement areas should be expanded. In the meantime, the county and the municipality have received a number of requests or interests for their people's lands to be included as settlement expansions, and we've mapped those on the land use schedule on the right, with the table on the left identifying all the requests. So far, we've got 28 requests or identification of interests, and you can see the land area for each of those. The numbers are on the map to the right. These total over 2,000 hectares of land, which will be well in excess of whatever the quantum the county gives to Innisfil, identifies for Innisfil. So we will be having to evaluate each of these to determine which are the most appropriate for expansion. Next slide, please, which gets into my next slide of where we're at. So as I indicated, in terms of the land needs assessment and our role, your role in determining where it should go, we're waiting the county's land needs assessment document, which will identify those land needs. In the meantime, we are evaluating those 28 requests against the evaluation criteria that we presented to you back in October. And we will be finalizing that evaluation once we know what the quantum of land needs are. So we're creating a matrix, looking at each one of those 28 requests and applying those to the criteria. And once we know the land needs, we'll be determining which are the most appropriate, and we'll be coming back to you with that evaluation and recommendations on where the settlement expansion should go. Can't tell you exactly when that will happen because we're, of course, waiting for the recommended land needs, but it should be sometime later this spring. Next slide, please. The other aspect that the county is working on is the refinements to the provincial agricultural system. The province released an agricultural system for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, including Simcoe County, and refinements to that agricultural system can only occur through the county's MCR. The province has identified a number of criteria, including technical adjustments, precise local information, which includes existing land uses, key natural heritage features, edge mapping, and lands which have been designated within settlement areas or de-designated from settlement areas. Next slide, please. If you recall, we as part of our review of the county's work, Ag Plan, an agricultural consultant was retained who worked on your official plan, Our Place. And Michael Hoffman is the senior person on that firm. And they provided a previous report, which has been provided to this council in a previous information report to council. And they identified areas that recommended for either including it within the provincial agricultural system or excluding, with the blue being included, the red being excluded. Many of these are either rural lands that have been already identified in your official plan as rural and not prime agriculture, or existing land uses of rural, commercial, rural, industrial, institutional uses, and in a couple of cases, some residential areas that were just in the edge of settlement areas or estate residential. If we go to the next slide, it identifies on the map what those recommended refinements were, and this was a similar map that we presented to you previously. You see some of the larger areas are the rural areas in the brown. The orange areas are the agriculture areas that are recommended to be included within the provincial agricultural system. But the brown, the pink, the blue are areas that should be refined. Now the county is just recently released in the last week or so. If we go to the next slide, they've released their recommended refinements to the provincial agricultural system. So this map shows in the green the provincially refined agricultural system the county is recommending. The areas that aren't green are settlement areas, natural heritage system, rural lands, and other areas that are not recommended to be included. And you can see the dashed black line are those areas that the county has recommended to be refined out of the provincial agricultural system. So we then, if we can go to the next slide, we've compared that map to the map that Agplan, Mr. Hoffman, prepared and identified the differences. So this map shows still those areas that Mr. Hoffman recommended to be refined out that haven't been through the county's process. You can see the largest area is those areas that are designated right now as rural in your official plan. Those are the dark brown. There's also a number of small areas, rural commercial, some rural industrial sites, a number of small community space or institutional sites. So these are all lands that we're going to be discussing with the county, reviewing with the county, discussing with the county, and trying to understand why they are not recommended those to be refined out, and discuss with them whether they should be refined out. It certainly is our opinion and the opinion of Mr. Hoffman that they should. So we'll have to have those discussions yet with the county. We go to the next slide. The other aspect that, oh, sorry, I should just talk a little bit about the implications of being within the provincial agricultural system. So the provincial agricultural system will reflect the agricultural policies and designations within the county and town official plan, so that the existing official plan policies will continue to apply to that agricultural system, which means a full range of agricultural uses will be permitted. Single detached residence accessory to existing farm operations are permitted. Agriculture related uses and on-farm diversified uses are permitted. Basically all the policies that you currently have in your official plan of permissions for the agricultural area designation will apply to this provincial agricultural system. Next slide, please. There's a few additional policies that the growth plan has identified for the agricultural system. And these are that the agricultural food network is to be maintained and improved by enhancing opportunities for access to healthy, local, affordable foods, promoting sustainability of agricultural and agricultural businesses, and minimizing and mitigating negative impacts on the agricultural food network. All are positive policies. I don't think anybody would disagree with these policies, and they would be something that we would likely incorporate into the town's official plans through that amendment that has to be undertaken the next year. And I'm sure the county will probably be looking at inputting those as well. So what does it mean to be within the primary agricultural system? Well, really, the mapping doesn't impact the ability of farms to continue current farm practices, particularly if you're already in the agricultural system. Provincial agricultural system will also not prevent settlement expansions from occurring into the primary agricultural system in the provincial agricultural system, but expansions into primary agricultural areas should be avoided where possible. In other words, if there's opportunities on the rural lands, it should go to the rural lands first, or consider that if that's a feasible option rather than the agricultural. It's the same policies that currently apply now through the provincial policy statement and are set out in your official plan. Next slide, please. The other aspect of the the county's been working on is refinements to the provincial natural heritage system. And the province also introduced through the growth plan policies and separate mapping a natural heritage system for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, including for Simcoe County and Innisfil. And the province only allows those refinements similar to the agricultural system to be done through the county's municipal comprehensive review process. So that's what the county is working on now. Through the work that we're doing, Burnside was retained to review the province's natural heritage system and provide some recommendations to the municipality. That report has previously been provided to you for information. So the province similarly allows for refinements to the natural heritage system, just as similar to the agricultural system, and has a number of criteria, including technical adjustments, addition of natural features contiguous with the provincial NHS system, or removal of small portions that are within build-up areas or infrastructure, removal of small isolated portions of the NHS. So those are the criteria. Next slide, please. And the proposed refinements are to be accompanied by supporting documentation, which the county has been preparing and which we also prepared through Burnside. And the Grow Plan NHS consists of not just natural features, but also rural farmland that provides for linkages. So when we overlay this on the town's key natural heritage features, you'll see that a lot of the key natural heritage features are within this green area, but also additional farmland is in this area because it's providing linkages. And this NHS, the provincial NHS, will apply as an overlay in the county official plan and the town's official plan, while those policies for our key natural heritage features will continue to apply. So this is going to be an overlay with some additional policy layers on top of what we right now have in terms of protecting those key natural heritage features. Next slide, please. So through the county's refinements, their first report that we had last fall identified a number of refinements, some removals due to rural plans of subdivision, removals for isolated natural heritage system, removal for a functional linkage area, and other small isolated areas. Next slide, please. They also recommended some minor additions in Innisfil, which are contiguous to the provincial NHS you see in the blue. Burnside then reviewed that work. Just a reminder, next slide is the work that they undertook, and they made 5 recommendations. And those 5 recommendations were to the work that the county had done, and these included recommendation 1 was to maintain the provincial NHS where it aligns with the county greenland and town's key natural heritage features. And we can see those couple areas in red that the county was proposing to remove. We're saying that, okay, remove those areas, but where they overlap with the key natural heritage feature, which is in the diagonal hatch, those should remain as part of the provincial NHS. Recommendation 2 was remove the NHS from the Alcona settlement area, and you see that kind of in the crux of Alcona, up in the north west boundary, right adjacent to the large wetland. So that area is recommended for removal. Recommendation 3 was to maintain the provincial NHS where there are no registered plans of subdivision. And those are a couple of the areas up in Big Bay Point. Recommendation 4 was to retain the isolated portions along Cumberland Bay in the provincial NHS. And those are the purple areas on the south side of Cumberland Bay. And recommendation 5 was to retain that non-functional linkage, which the county was recommending removing, which is the linkage just to east of Stroud. So those are our recommendations. We haven't yet received the further report from the county that has taken this into account. So we're not yet able to advise on what the county's position on these recommendations are, but we're anticipating to receive that next report from the county very soon. Next slide, please. Just want to talk about the implications for the agriculture community for being within the provincial NHS. As I indicated, the provincial NHS includes key natural heritage features as well as portions of farmland. And in that area, existing agriculture uses will be permitted to continue, as is the current practice. New agricultural buildings are permitted in vegetation protection zone, and vegetation protection zones are those buffers to key natural heritage features. So it's similar to what the policies are now. New agricultural buildings will be permitted in those areas, but it's subject to a series of criteria that's set out in the growth plan. New agricultural buildings are not permitted within key features within the provincial natural heritage system. So these are the key natural heritage features: the woodlots, the wetlands, the stream corridors, which is the current policies now. Next slide, please. And in terms of the implication on the settlement boundaries, the NHS does not prevent a settlement area expansion, but expansions in the NHS should be avoided into the NHS should be avoided where possible. So in other words, you can expand around it, but expansions should be avoided where possible. And of course, lands that are significant development won't be permitted on. So that anywhere there's a key natural heritage feature, development would not be permitted through settlement expansion. The next slide, I think, is the last summary slide of next steps. Yes. We understand from the county, we don't have a lot of dates here because we're still waiting for some of the release of these reports, but just to highlight for council and the public what the next steps are through the MCR. First, there's comments on the county's proposed refinements to the agricultural system are due on April 20th, and we'll be working with the county and providing comments on that. We understand there's an open house by the county on April 12th to update their work. We're expecting a county release of the land needs assessment and the growth management official plan amendment. We're anticipating release of the provincial NHS mapping, the final, which hopefully it takes into account our recommendations to them and that OPA. And we're expecting release of the recommended agricultural system mapping after the county gets comments on their proposed refinements, and there would be an OPA on that. Also, for you, there will be a staff report on our evaluation and recommendations of those settlement expansions that will be then provided to the county with the town's recommendations on where those settlement areas should be expanded. And I said that will be later this spring. Then there'll be a county council workshop on the official plan amendments, statutory public open house, statutory public meeting, and then finally county council adoption, all taking place by, we understand, August of this year. So a lot to happen in the next number of months. And that finally finishes my presentation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowe's. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Eisses.
Thank you, Worship. I got a chance to look at the proposed prime agricultural area map for Innisfil. Mr. Lowe's, in your presentation, you talked about the natural heritage systems map. Has that been released yet?
Through Madam Mayor, the map we showed was the county's proposed refinements in the fall. We haven't seen the next report, which would take into account all the comments they got on that, including the comments that we provided to you and you received endorsed. So we haven't seen that next step.
Okay. I was interested in your comments regarding the natural heritage systems and the linkages that you showed on the map. I'm just curious what the criteria were for establishing those linkages.
Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. The province gave everybody the provincial natural heritage system. There wasn't a lot of detailed criteria or basis for it. It's just that it was to identify the key features and linkages between them. There was no detailed report or analysis on how various linkages were provided.
So I guess those in the agriculture community are wondering what the impacts of having land in a natural heritage system. You said very clearly in your report that normal agricultural practices were allowed in agricultural land. Is that also apply to the natural heritage system areas that we have in the town?
Certainly, through Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, in certain respects. So all existing agriculture uses are permitted. And within the provincial natural heritage system, outside the key natural heritage features, new agriculture uses, new agricultural buildings are permitted. Those key natural heritage features are those significant woodlands, the significant wetlands, the stream corridors. Those areas we already identify in your official plan, and identify that new agriculture uses aren't permitted in those areas. So in terms of those parts of the provincial natural heritage system, it really doesn't change. We don't allow new agriculture uses in those areas right now, and that's directed by the provincial policy statement, and it's set out in your official plan. It's really those linkage you talk about, and the province does allow new agriculture uses in those linkages. So the existing farmland allows new agriculture uses in there. So overall, there shouldn't be much difference for agricultural operations with this provincial natural heritage system.
Yeah, that's good to hear. The concern is that once this process is over, if a landowner finds that their land is classed in a certain way, and in their mind there's not the evidence to support that, is there a method, is there a process where they can get that changed? I know now we're in the consulting phase. After this process is over, will there be opportunity for that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Only through, if it's part of the provincial natural heritage system, only through a county municipal comprehensive review. So only every time the county reviews their official plan. Unfortunately, that's the policy set out in the growth plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I might be wrong on my analysis, but because the maps on our computers are so small, I was interested in two parcels of land which were, I believe, on the north and south side of the 12th line, close to the lake, which I believe they are key natural heritage features, but they're not covered by the NHS. And I brought this up once before, that would allow the NHS to extend right down to the lake in that particular case. And I'm not too sure whether or not this is what we've recommended, that we're not going to extend the NHS to cover those two lots of land. I just don't understand why you would have a key natural heritage feature and not have it covered by the NHS. So I just like an explanation of that, why we haven't recommended that the NHS be expanded to include those. And then also, if we expanded it, it would also maybe make up for the ones that we're losing. So we would net out zero in terms of change in terms of the NHS in Innisfil.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, there is a lot of key natural heritage features in Innisfil that aren't included in the provincial natural heritage system. We have key natural heritage features throughout, a lot of other woodlands, wetlands throughout the town that aren't included. The specific policy properties I'd have to look at with Burnside. Maybe if we could identify those through Ms. Nordstrom, and we could specifically look at that again and just make sure the reason for them to be included or not included within the provincial natural heritage system. The key thing, though, to understand is through our key natural heritage features, those areas are to be protected. There's no development allowed within them, no development or site alteration allowed within those features. So they are protected. Irrespective of the provincial natural heritage system, if they're a key natural heritage feature, they are protected and have a full protection by the policies of the PPS and the town's official plan. But in terms of those specifics, whether we can look at them, if we could identify those specific properties, we can review those.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe's. Anything to add, Ms. Nordstrom?
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship, to Councillor Waters' question and to build on Paul's comment, we did identify those two properties to the county following that meeting in January and asked, based on our review of their criteria, what were the reasons for them not to be included in the provincial NHS. So the county is aware of those two properties and are looking into that as part of what we will see in the next round of refinement. So I just wanted to let you know that we did look into that and forward that on to the county.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Isis.
Yeah, I did have another question about the area that was designated agricultural by the province, and the county and the town have all different numbers. I was curious as to how is that going to be rectified? Are we just going to use the province's numbers, or after this is done, is it all going to be agreed upon which is agriculture and which isn't? Can you address that, please?
Mr. Lowe's? You're on mute, Mr. Lowe's.
I got to get the hang of this. It's only been a couple of years. Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, to the Councillor Isis. Yeah, when it's all said and done, we'll have an agreement on what the numbers are and what areas are. The county will be making, through their official plan, recommendations to the province on the refinements, and the province will have to agree. Province may still disagree in some areas, or they may agree with what the county proposes in their official plan. We're hoping that in the next couple of weeks, we can review these remaining areas that we feel should be refined with the county, and hopefully come to an agreement on further refinements to their mapping.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, with the proposed prime agricultural areas, recently we just was announced on a Lee property. I'm sorry, Lengy, and I may be mispronouncing that. Future proposal of 265 long-term care beds. And I'm just wondering, how are we preparing to, we have no idea as to when this will happen in a time frame, but how are we going to address that if that's on prime agricultural area, mapped area now?
Ms. Nordstrom?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Orsatti's question, it's a very good question, and that announcement for some much needed long-term care beds in our area is exciting. In terms of these lands being prime ag and any other lands that remain within a prime ag mapping, is that through our settlement boundary expansion review, we need to be looking at what areas they're to be avoided where possible. So what areas are of a rural designation, and are they appropriate to be brought into the settlement area? And if not, then if we're bringing in prime ag lands, then there's criteria to look at for that. So it doesn't prevent prime agricultural lands from being brought into a settlement boundary, but it does seek that, does require that we try and avoid where possible. So that's what we'll be looking at. Those lands that you're referring to are one of the ones that are in the settlement area boundary expansion request database that Mr. Rose was referring to earlier. So we'll be looking at that property as well as all of the other requested properties against that criteria.
Thank you very much, because as you mentioned, Ms. Nordstrom, long-term LTC beds, long-term care beds are essential and would be such a benefit to our community. I think it was mentioned 500 employment opportunities in the future. I just hate to get in a situation, so if we can be proactive and start planning for that, availability, instead of getting into an MZO situation like we did with Tollendale Village. I think it certainly helps us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? I had one, if I could, please. So today the province announced More Homes for Everyone plan that looks at, you know, an awful lot of amendments to DC charges and the Planning Act and so on. Can you foresee that interfering in this process at all, or will they be totally separate?
To you, Madam Mayor, in the last 3 hours, I've had a chance to review it. I don't see that there's any be any impact to this process. There's certainly going to be an impact to your planning process and implications for that, but there's not to this MCR process. Thank
you. My last comment would be the April 12th meeting at County Council. I meant to call the county this week and ask Clerk Daly what the format of that meeting was. The reason we're having that meeting or that open house or workshop or whatever they're calling it that day is because county councillors were concerned that much of this work was being done from planning staff at the lower tier to planning staff at the county. And there's been a few updates, but not a lot of kind of discussion with county councillors, and especially on the land needs piece. So I suspect there'll be a lot of conversation at that meeting from county councillors, but not totally understanding yet as to the format, if they'll be taking delegations or if they'll wait for the statutory public meeting for that. But stay tuned and keep your eye on the county council website. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then we'll now hear from those members of the public who would like to provide comments or questions before council votes on receiving the report and all comments provided during this meeting. The speaking order is now on the screen. And as I said before, when it's your turn, you'll have 5 minutes to express your questions or concerns, and town staff will be capturing your comments as we progress. Once your 5 minutes are up, please turn off your video and audio, and I will call the next speaker's name. Once all speakers on the list have spoken, I will ask for any additional speakers, and at that time, please turn on your video only and raise your hand. I will call the speaker's name and ask that they turn on their audio when it is their turn for the additional 5 minutes. During the meeting, once you have provided comment, you can remain in the meeting, but please do not turn on your audio or video. You may also leave the meeting and watch on the town's YouTube channel if you prefer. And I will now ask the first person on the list, which is a representative of Boostfields, to please turn on your video and audio, state your name, your full name for the record, and we're happy to have you here. And I guess that is Alex Savanu. Whenever you're ready, Alex.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Alex Savanu, and I'm a land use planner from Boustfields. And we are working on behalf of the Stroud Village Developers Group, and we have been monitoring the county's MCR process. And you may be aware that we've participated and actually made deputations at previous council meetings and public workshops. Further to that, we have submitted 2 letters to council, one in October of 2021 and another one in December of 2021, specifically regarding our settlement area boundary expansion, which Mr. Lowe's was kind of touching on that aspect of the MCR a bit in his presentation. And the second letter was some comments and responses that we had to the town's MCR update report number 3, which I believe was back in December. And more recently, we have met with town staff, including planning and in services, to discuss some of the work that the developers group has done to accommodate this settlement area boundary expansion, and also discussing the status of the MCR at the county. And I'm here today, and I'll just take 2 more minutes. And we did just want to reiterate our request that the developers group's lands be included in the settlement area boundary expansion. Of course, we'll continue to work with staff to discuss that. And in our opinion, this will further support complete and connected communities, as well as the efficient use of existing amenities, infrastructure, and resources. And again, I'll just take 2 more minutes to summarize, in our opinion, why we do believe that expansion in Stroud is appropriate. And again, if I can summarize it, I put it into 5 categories. The first being, Stroud is already a compact and complete community with Main Street uses specifically along Yonge Street. And the extension of development in this area will support and benefit existing and future mixed uses in a walkable community. And just in a more general way, we do believe that expansion in this location makes sense, and it's part of the natural progression and growth of this longstanding existing community. Number 2 is servicing. Servicing in Stroud, from our understanding, is not an obstacle for growth, and there has been significant investments by the town and in services towards supporting infrastructure that has already occurred and some other infrastructure that is underway, as well as commitments from the developers group to upfront certain improvements as well. The third would be proximity to the town campus. Of course, as you know, town campus is located at the southeast corner of Yonge and Innisfil Beach Road, approximately 1 line south of the existing Stroud Village settlement area boundary. And the town campus has also been identified in your official plan as an area where future major government and cultural facilities should be considered and where related commercial developments may occur. Number 4, and I think this one's quite important, is proximity to transit, including a short distance from a regional transportation hub, that being, of course, the Barrie South GO train station, which is approximately 3 kilometers north of the existing Stroud boundary. Also in proximity to an important regional transportation corridor, that being Yonge Street, a main thoroughfare through Innisfil and Barrie, as well as proximity to Highway 400 to the west and the Innisfil Beach Road to the south. Lastly, we have the Hewitt Secondary Plan. On the south limits of Barrie, we'll see the upgrading of Yonge Street and Lockhart Road right to the north boundary of Stroud within the next 10 years or less. Access to this important transportation infrastructure provides the developers groups lands with excellent access to existing community amenities, services, and facilities within the surrounding area, and also connectivity to the greater county. So with that being said, again, I just wanted to summarize those points and reiterate our request. And again, we'll continue to work with in-services and planning staff on this potential settlement area boundary expansion. And we do believe that it is appropriate and it would achieve provincial objectives of creating a complete community. That's all for me. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Savigny. Much appreciated. Next, we'll go to Paul DeMello. Mr. DeMello, whenever you're ready, we're ready to hear from you. And I don't see Mr. DeMello on the Zoom link, so perhaps through the clerk's office, if he's had some technical difficulties, we could ask him to submit his comments in writing. We're still happy to receive those. And then I'll go to Miles. Oh, Ms. Toma.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. DeMello did contact the clerk's office. He was having technical difficulties this evening, so he will be submitting it tomorrow or the next day, I believe, and we'll circulate to council.
Thank you. So then we'll go to Miles Weeks. Mr. Weeks, whenever you're ready. And we did receive your correspondence today too, Mr. Weeks.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. And I'll try not to reiterate too many of the points, but we did want to take this opportunity just to speak with you all. And so without further ado, I'll get started. So my name is Miles Weeks, and I'm a senior land use planner with Foten Consultants. We've been retained by the owner of the lands located at 1590 and 1702 Innisfil Beach Road regarding their existing request to be considered for inclusion within the settlement area boundary expansion. Just for some context, our client site is located just outside the current Alcona settlement boundary, just across the railroad tracks and to the west of Alcona along Innisfil Beach Road. And so this location places the site, between Alcona and also the recently announced South Campus for the Royal Victoria Regional Health Center. So that's at the intersection of Yonge Street and Innisfil Beach Road. This property is currently an agricultural site. However, it is in a regular shape and it is non-contiguous with other surrounding agricultural tracts of land. The site is bounded to the west and the north by environmental features, as well as a railroad to the east and Innisfil Beach Road to the south. The lands to the south and the east are also planned for a potential realignment of 20th Side Road, which would potentially further limit their use for agriculture in the future. I would also note that the soil quality, as mapped by the province, is such that it's generally of a lower quality than we would typically see for prime agricultural lands. And so overall, I guess what I'm saying is, the size and the context of the site make it less ideal for long-term use for agricultural purposes. So in that context, in the last month, really, Lang Yi Villa Nonprofit Living, they were awarded 256 new long-term care beds for this site with a commitment to bring them online by 2025. The members and partners of Lang Yi have a proven track record in the Greater Toronto Area and have significant development and operational experience of culturally appropriate long-term care facilities and seniors housing. There's been a long-standing urgency and shortage for long-term care beds and senior housing in the province. Seniors housing supports the main principles of the 2020 growth plan insofar as it supports the creation of complete communities, and it supports a range and mix of housing options for all ages, incomes, and needs. In this case, consideration is given to the market demand for future population and the growing needs of what we would call non-household population, which really includes seniors. For context, the entire Barrie area currently has a total of 1,088 long-term care beds, and as recently as February 2022, the wait list for those beds was 4,734 people long. So with an average turnover of about 36 beds per month, that would take roughly 11 years to absorb the current wait list. So to assist in improving this situation, Lang Yi is proposing a continuum of care seniors campus development for the subject lands. So this would be similar to what exists at Georgian Village in Penetanguishene, Ontario. The long-term care facilities would anchor the development, and then the 256 provincially funded long-term care beds would be offered by Lang Yi, along with a number of charitable and non-profit private long-term care beds as well, in an effort to further reduce the shortage of beds and wait times. As part of this senior care campus, assisted and independent living in the form of rental and life lease units are also proposed, with a wide spectrum of on-demand services to serve the varied and changing healthcare needs of seniors. Importantly, the brick and mortar buildings would also be supported by key health, personal care, social, and recreational services and activities to create an active, vibrant, and pedestrian-friendly seniors node, which is integrated in the heart of Innisfil, just adjacent to the community hub and existing urban area. In addition, complementary and accessory uses such as Seniors Community Center and staff residences are being proposed to attract and retain frontline staff. So Lang Yi will be pursuing the opportunity to create personal support worker training facilities, as well as a seniors research and technology incubation space to help further collaborative advancements in the seniors care field. It's also estimated that this project at completion will generate over 500 permanent and part-time jobs. So Lang Yi's request for this site is to be included in the settlement area expansion, and this represents a unique opportunity to bring 256 much needed provincially allocated long-term care beds to Innisfil, along with much needed affordable seniors housing supply in a comprehensively planned and designed site. Given the nature of the proposed development, it's our position that the lands could be included as additional lands within the Alcona settlement expansion area, specifically geared towards what we call the non-household population, which again includes seniors, a significantly growing population who require non-traditional and non-household living accommodations. As such, it's our opinion that adding these lands may have minimal impact to the balance of lands which are already being allocated to more traditional residential uses. So finally, I would note that Langy has investigated opportunities for this campus on other lands within the current settlement boundary. However, there were no suitable sites within the existing urban boundary to accommodate the proposed campus as it's envisioned. So that'll wrap it up for me tonight. We do look forward to working with town staff on this matter. And again, I thank council for their time and consideration of our request. Thank
you, Mr. Weeks. That's all the speakers we have. So I'll ask if there's persons that would have further comments to make. Seeing none, have any emails or telephone calls been received by the clerk's office during this meeting?
Thank you, Your Worship. No calls or no emails.
Thank you, Ms. Toma. Now we will go to the recommendation to receive any comments provided this evening. And could I ask Councillor Fowler and Councillor Waters to move and second the recommendation that's on the screen in front of you? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch this live stream tonight. Anyone who wishes to provide comment may still do so and may also register as an interested party to be contacted prior to further consideration by council. Please contact the clerk's office at innisfil.ca. And council thanks everyone for their participation this evening. And I will ask Councillor Orsatti and Councillor Van Berkel to move and second the confirming bylaw, please. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And adjournment, I will ask Councillor Ices and Councillor Nicol to move and second adjournment this evening. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, council, and have a good rest of the week. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.